And we're live. Hello, hello. I think we are live. Paul, we're live. So,
Awesome.
hello everyone. Great to see all of these people on our live stream already, because today we have a pretty awesome topic to discuss. But first, question into the chat. Can everyone hear us? Make sure the sound works. And Paul, you maybe say something too. You're our French channel manager joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Paul, French channel manager, and I help make some videos, make some animations here and there. I've been working with EMA Simple for about a year, and now full-time recently.
Exactly. He's a big part of the team now today. But Paul, let's go straight into it. So we're going to talk today about the peace plan that first Trump presented, and now the EU has even presented their own peace plan, right? So maybe explain a little bit the last 4 days of what happened here, because a lot is happening for Ukraine.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely crazy. I mean, it all started last Wednesday on the 19th. Around there was a leaked plan for potentially a 28 points plan for peace in Ukraine by the US, and then they confirmed it on the next day on the 20th, and and it made quite the bombshells, quite the news. Not many people were very happy with it. So the Ukrainians weren't very happy with it. The Europeans were not very happy with it. And now it's a bit of a back and forth, isn't it? Right? You've got the Americans, they're saying they're not going to budge on their positions, and the Europeans want something else, and now the Russians are saying they don't like our counter proposals. So it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess. But I think what happened now is, so the peace plan, where it was leaked, it came out. I think it was 28 points from the US side, I think,
Yeah.
right? And then those 28 points were obviously not well received by Europeans. And Europeans yesterday, I think they were meeting in Geneva, right, to come up with their own version of the peace plan.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there was Steve Witkoff, Marco Rubio was also involved. I don't know if he was in Geneva, though. I think it was mostly Steve Witkoff. I think he's the one that presented the plan, right? I mean, making sure I'm not getting anything wrong here. But, I mean, you've seen the plan, right? We've read through it.
Well, that's what we're doing today, right? What we're doing
Yeah.
today is we're literally going to go through all the 28 points that Trump presented, and also see the counterpoints for each of those 28 points of what the Europeans presented. Because the Europeans yesterday hit back and basically said, well, this is, I mean, they have to say it. This is a great plan. Thank you, America. It's awesome. It's a good start, but we have some changes to make. And literally, I thought it was quite clever. For each of the 28 points that Trump and the team, well, not Trump personally, but the US team presented, Europe had like a comeback, like okay, well, this is good, but here we're actually making a little change, right? That's what happened.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, as you say, we're going to go through them, but it's quite interesting. There's a lot of nuances in some of these points. Some of them have been removed, right? Big drama. And it's quite interesting as well, the wording. I've kept some of it, but there's been a lot of speculation whether this plan even came from the US, right? Is this an American plan, or is this a Russian plan? We'll see
Right.
there what there is there.
Yeah,
But it's very interesting.
it definitely isn't a Ukraine plan, put it that way.
That's for sure. Yeah, not from the Europeans. That's certain.
All right, because we have a lot of points to get through. So let's start. So the way we're going to do this, guys, is we have a lovely here prepared PowerPoint, and the way it works is on the left you will see the American peace plan proposals, and on the right you'll see the European peace plan proposals. And what we'll do is we'll read through the American one and then see if there's a difference in the European version, and then we'll discuss, right? So yeah. So number 1 of 28. Ukraine's sovereignty will be confirmed. Yeah, I mean, and the EU obviously agrees. The Ukraine sovereignty will be confirmed, which I think is quite interesting that even has to be part of the plan. Isn't that anyway? Yeah, it's not the goal of the whole plan, but yeah.
I mean, some could argue that it's almost surprising that Russia would put that in there, right? Considering their war aims are not compatible with there. From the point of view of the Russians, I think this first one, right, was meant to be read by Donald Trump. I mean, imagine you're looking at a peace plan from the Russians, and the first thing you hear that the Russians don't want Ukraine to exist, blah blah blah, and then you're the Trump, you're the American president who maybe doesn't have much of an intuition for foreign policy decisions, as we've seen multiple times, you're going to read the first point and you're going to say, wow, that's a totally reasonable stance. So I think that point was made for Trump, right? It wasn't made for anybody else, even though someone might read that and be like, oh, well, that's perfectly reasonable. The Russians do want Ukraine to exist. I mean, that's my opinion, at least on that point there.
Yeah. All right, let's move to number 2, because there's actually number 20. I think is the most critical one. So we'll be well before we get there. But let's go through them quite quickly. The ones that are not as groundbreaking. So number 2, non-aggression pact between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe, and of course Europe the same. I think that kind of goes without saying. I'll go straight to number 3, which is Russia will not invade neighboring countries and NATO will not expand further. And this was removed by the EU. That was not part of the EU plan. I mean, what do you think? What do you think of that?
I mean, it's at first glance it seems weird, right? Russia will not invade neighboring countries, but this is all about the NATO expansion. It's very clear NATO has always been an alliance where we don't let foreign countries decide, who gets to join our alliance, right?
Yeah.
It's self-determination. It's what democracy and freedom was built on. So of course we're not going to allow Russia, out of all countries, to dictate who gets to join our alliance. So for me, it makes a lot of sense why it's there. It should not be a limitation of NATO.
Exactly. NATO expansion is a decision made by I think it's 31 NATO members, or 32. I think it's 31. Yeah, 31 NATO members. That's a decision of those 31 NATO members, and I think they'll have a veto. So exactly, those should be making the decision, not a foreign country like Russia. So I think it's correct that Europe removed that one. Cool. Let's continue. So number 4. The American plan says that right now, dialogue between Russia and NATO to create a de-escalatory environment. Okay. And then the EU version says, okay, similar, but no, only after peace will there be dialogue between Russia and NATO to create a de-escalatory environment. So I think, if I understand this correctly, Europe is basically saying there needs to be peace before we de-escalate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, and I think my view on this as well is that if you have dialogue now, it opens, the Russians are good at talking, right? They're very seasoned politicians. They've got very, very, very good foreign policy advisors. If you let them talk now, especially to Trump, things could go south quite quickly. So I think that's why this is there. But yeah, of course, first a ceasefire, then peace negotiations. That's always the basis for any peace negotiation, at least in my view.
And I think we need a little caveat here, by the way. I'm just reading the chat. We call it EU peace plan, but the ones that discussed it were Keir Starmer in the UK, Macron, Merz, and of course Ursula von der Leyen. So the EU was definitely involved, but it's a bit bigger than just an EU peace plan. Just for simplicity, I think we put the EU flag there. Yeah, cool. All right, okay. So that number 5, Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees. The wording too, right? Receive reliable security guarantees, okay. And the EU strengthened it, if you ask me, saying no, Ukraine will receive robust security guarantees.
Yeah, I mean, this takes us back to the, what is it called again? Budapest Memorandum and the Minsk Agreement, no? I mean, they also had reliable security guarantees after those agreements, and we can see where that got Ukraine. So I think that's why we're tough on that one, I would say.
Yeah, but even that, right? For me, it's still too vague. Okay, so Ukraine will receive robust security guarantees. For me, then it's like, okay, well, what security guarantees? We really need to go like 5 levels deeper, because for me, the most obvious one would obviously be NATO membership. I mean, then it's very, very clear what security guarantees they're going to get. And if that's off the table, which I think it shouldn't be, then it becomes very vague of what security guarantees become. I mean, even robust security guarantees is way, way too vague for me.
I totally agree. And even NATO security guarantees is not something that it's something that we've come to question over the past few years. We shouldn't have been, but we started to question it. So even NATO security guarantees, and as you say, like what does a security guarantee mean? Like troops on the ground, right? Obviously not with the Budapest Memorandum and the Minsk Accord. So yeah, I guess this was more of like a play on words here, but yeah, it's important that it's highlighted in bold there, I think.
Yeah, for me, honestly, the EU doesn't go far enough here either. And here, Ran in the chat, he says, thank you, Ran, for your comment. Number 5, security guarantees by the USA as well, right? But Trump is so unreliable. What is it worth then? Exactly. it's worth fuck all. Excuse my language, but it seems like
you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, why can't we provide security guarantees as Europeans? All right. So of course we need American security guarantees. I mean, actually, why do we need American security guarantees? It's our continent. I mean, I agree that it's better for the Americans to be on our side. They've got a bigger military in here. But why aren't we as Europeans in a position to offer Ukraine an actual security guarantee? Why does it have to be the Americans, right? Why can't we have the troops and the military power necessary to defend a country that's right on our border, right? It's not on the other side of the world. It's right there. So, yeah,
Paul, to be honest, this is what also really annoys me about this entire peace plan process. It is once again the Americans that are taking the proactive approach. I mean, if the Americans wrote it, it might have been the Russians writing it, but nonetheless, the Americans are taking a more proactive approach in trying to settle this war. And as Europeans, as always, as for 4 years now, are only reacting. What I don't understand is why has the EU not created a, I don't know, 25-point plan like literally a year ago? We're saying these are literally our red lines where all of us in the EU plus the UK agree upon. Well, I just don't understand why we don't have that.
It's always with us very reactive, right? We're never on the offensive. We're always on the defense. And this is not just about Ukraine. This is about everything, right? We can make a case about economics, make policy, regulation. I'm not here to talk about these things today, but yeah, why can't we do? Why aren't we the ones proposing? It's our continent. It's our security. I totally agree.
It's infuriating, to be honest. It's just always reactive. I mean, here, I think someone in the comments here said it. Okay, I lost it now. It's moving too quick. Okay, can't find it anymore. But I think someone also mentioned we're also reactive. We're always reactive. Anyway, so yeah, moving on from number 5. Let's look at number 6. And this one for me is like, what? Right here. The size of the Ukrainian armed forces, so Trump side, the size of the Ukrainian armed forces will be limited to 600,000 personnel. And then the European side says size of the Ukrainian military to be kept at 800,000 in peacetime. I have strong opinions on this one, but I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I mean, I probably share your opinions, but it's absolutely ridiculous that they would have a cap on their army. I mean, this is a non-starter. This is a non-starter for me. The whole point of peace in Ukraine is that it doesn't happen again. I mean, what do we think? Do we think that if we cap the Ukrainian army, that the Russians are just going to say, oh, yeah, well, we're just going to leave that there. Now it's an easy target, but we're not going to go for it again. Right? I mean, this is the whole basis of why we need security guarantees in Ukraine. If we make a bad peace deal now, we're going to end up with a problem, obviously, later down the line, but also a problem that Ukraine can't maintain a 1.5 million strong army. It doesn't have 1.5 million. I don't know the exact numbers, but it can't maintain such an army size. But obviously, it will not even be able to maintain such an army size in a provisional peace deal or something if it has a cap to it installed in its constitution, which is probably what it's asking. So for me, this is a non-starter. And I also, this is not on the PowerPoint, but I read online and I heard from commentators that the 600,000 is all of the military personnel, including those that are in the administrative roles. So actually, when you have the people on the ground defending the front line, you'll have a lot less than 600,000. You'll have maybe 400,000, which is half of it's a ridiculous number, at least for this kind of war.
I don't. For me, the big issue is not only the number, which is also an issue, but it's Ukraine is supposed to be a sovereign country, which was number one. Ukraine will keep its sovereignty. If you can't determine how big your army is, I mean, that just completely defeats the point of sovereignty. That's my point number one. Point number two is anyone who says, like to me, like, oh, Russia will stop once this conflict is over. This is proof that it won't. Why otherwise would it have a cap on the armed forces of Ukraine? For me, that's a clear indication that Russia is not done. They're looking a couple of years along the line and like, okay, Ukraine is nice and weak now. Let's go for them again. I mean, and is Russia going to have a cap? I saw someone in the comments. Is Russia going to have a cap on their forces? Of course not. Like, it's just insane. It's just insane.
That's a very valid point. Yeah, I mean, that's what they'll be like, like this, waiting because they don't have democracy. They can just they have the advantage of time. They just need to wait for the next president, and then they can go for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, I don't agree with the European approach here either. 800,000 cap in peacetime. No, I think that's Ukraine's choice completely to have however big their army they want. So I think it should be unlimited. But yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's take a quick break because there's some super chats in the chat. So unknown user, that's super generous. Thank you so much. So the first thing that the unknown user is asking, great name, unknown user. We should use the Russian frozen assets to finance our common European defense and replace our reliance on American protection via Unite Europe. Speaking to the choir, I guess, right? I mean, do you think, Paul, that we should unfreeze the frozen assets to use it to create an American or a European defense? I mean, what do you think about
that? It's a no-brainer. I mean, and I'm someone who I'm not a finance guru or anything, but I've got some experience in finance. Everyone will say, "Oh, it's the end. It's the." Of course, it loosens credibility on European financial markets, but this is a direct attack on Europe. This is I know that it's a war on Ukraine, but we've got drones over France. We still have drones. There was some drones over Romania just this morning, or close to the Romanian border just this morning. This is a direct attack on Europe. No country or no investor is going to not already price in that into the market price, of course, and into the bond price, the bond price. So of course it's a problem, and the pure financials of financial part of me would be like, no, we can't steal, even though it's not stealing their money. But I do think it's absolutely necessary. And yeah, fund Ukraine. I think it should first be spent on Ukraine. I'm very passionate about European Army too, but where I would disagree potentially with unknown users, I would send it first to Ukraine. But where I would agree with them is that we should spend that money on European weapons, not buy F-16s. Let's spend it on our production, and then send that to Ukraine, and it'd be a win-win for everyone. More jobs for us, weapons for Ukraine, and the Russians lose a bunch of money. This is a total win.
Yeah. And again, it's currently who's hurting to pay for Ukraine? Obviously Ukraine the most, but after that it's the European taxpayer. So all the taxes that we pay money to Ukraine to try to stop Russia, but we can't touch money from Russia, who's already made all this damage and everything themselves anyway. So it makes for me also no sense that we can't at least use Russian money for something they created, if you know what I mean. It's
their fault. Their war, they pay, of course.
Yeah. Anyway, we go to the next super chat from unknown user. He's been very generous. Thank you so much. And he said, if we want to have a proactive, strong, united Europe, we need movements like Volt and Ave Europa to get bigger and unite Europe into a strong European federation with its own sovereign defense. Paul, do you want a federal Europe?
He's onto something for sure. He's absolutely, or they are absolutely right. I mean, they said it right. I mean, do you want to add anything, Lambertus? I mean, I know you're probably on the same side.
I think for defense, it makes so much sense. I mean, anyone that watches the channel, all our videos that we do about military. Why are we spending 27 times on 27 different things rather than doing it once together? For me, long term, this makes complete sense. And it's an absolute shame that the European defense community in 1955, I think, wasn't created, that it failed in the French Parliament, because we were close. For anyone that doesn't know, we were very, very close in 1955, I think it was, to create a European army. But out of the 6 countries, 5 were for it, and it failed in the French Parliament. Paul, what happened?
It was tragic. I mean, we have a leader very much appreciated in France, who I admire greatly as well, Charles de Gaulle. And he, back then, the situation was very different, right? Post-war, Soviets, of course. And there was this thinking from Charles de Gaulle, who's a very great strategic thinker, that the European army was almost a detriment because you'd have already the NATO structure. And it didn't make much sense at the time. Now, I'm not an expert in history, so please, people in the comments or in the chat, just put in some corrections here. But my assumption for this is that, or what I recall, is he wanted countries to be strong by themselves, like France wanted to be independent of American dominance. That's why we built the atom bomb in France, and not to be reliant from an overly European structure dominated by the Americans. So I think that was his thinking, but coming from someone who's not an expert.
But I think he was. I mean, we're going a bit off track here, so let's make keep this short. But I think he wasn't against it necessarily. It was more the parliament, some detractors that made it fail. But let's park it here. Definitely a good topic for another video. If anyone in the chat, someone French that knows history well, let us know exactly why it failed, please. But we'll continue with the peace plan for now. All right, number 7. Ukraine will not join NATO, and it has to be in the constitution. And NATO agrees not to let them join in the future. Okay. And then the European response: Ukraine joining NATO depends on consensus of NATO members, which does not exist. I think we talked about this already, and it makes complete sense. I think the US version is completely wrong.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's look, if we get a consensus for Ukraine to join NATO, which I think we should, then we get a consensus, and then they join. No one can dictate whether or not the country is allowed to join. If we don't get a consensus, then that's a failing of the structure of NATO, and that's where the whole European army, European defense clause comes in, right? Because as mentioned, we need security guarantees. I mean, what do you think, Lambertus? I mean, this is a non-starter, right? We can't. I mean,
yeah, we keep talking about security guarantees for Ukraine, and the easiest way to do this, we already have the structure in place. It's called NATO, right? And we're always trying to go around the point because Russia doesn't want Ukraine part of NATO. So we're trying to figure out a way of how to give them security guarantees without NATO. And to be honest, it all doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit together because, it just shows that Russia doesn't want any security guarantees for Ukraine. So I don't know. So I completely agree with you with the European approach. NATO membership should be decided by Europeans and the other NATO members and not by Russia, right? And if we want security guarantees for Ukraine, I only see NATO, to be honest.
You don't see a European security guarantee with Ukraine's aid, like a European military structure potentially?
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, how would that look like? How would that look like? So we just exactly. I'll ask you.
I mean, my envisionment is that getting a consensus from NATO for Ukraine to join is going to be impossible because of the US, but because of Hungary, right? It's probably Turkey will try to make it difficult too. So I almost envision a European defense clause. I know that if you're in Europe, we have a defense clause. I'm not
EU, exactly.
In the EU, it would be quite good. And this is like our multi-tier EU, right? Like it would be great if Ukraine could be part of some kind of military structure with the Europeans because they have so much know-how. And in exchange, they could join some kind of economic structure with the European Union. And there's something that could work there. And I think it'd be a lot more reliable. I'm someone who's very monetary. I believe in
yeah, but the thing is, Paul, I see your point, but I think that's long-term, right? Sadly, I don't see us there yet to be able to give the guarantees that Ukraine needs. I mean, we should do everything we can right now, but even in the war in Ukraine, without the US support when it comes to satellites, when it comes to intelligence and things like that, they wouldn't, if that disappears, us Europeans couldn't fulfill that gap, right? So even there, we are short. So I think your idea of a European security guarantee, maybe even in a European defense community that could give that to Ukraine, I think is only possible after we've spent in 3 to 4 to 5 years, if you ask me.
So we should have started doing 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, right?
Yeah. Obviously.
And again, this is us shooting ourselves in the foot because we decided, the Americans will take care of it. No, not this time.
All right. So NATO agrees not to station troops in Ukraine. Number 8. Okay, and NATO agrees not to permanently station troops under its command in Ukraine in peacetime. So this is another insane one. How can we guarantee security guarantees if we can't station any troops in Ukraine? I mean, then it would have, the only way I could see that working is if foreign troops which are non-NATO are stationed there. Is that even possible with that clause number 8 from USA? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's quite complicated. I mean, clearly this clause number 8 is meant to create ambiguity, right? It's meant to, I mean, it's meant to do exactly that. You can't defend Ukraine if you can't have troops on the ground. So station troops in Ukraine. So maybe it would be a air power security guarantee. I guess that's what Russia would be aiming for, combining it with its earlier statements here that you'd have a security guarantee, but a reliable one, so it's not robust, and so maybe you can't have stationed troops in Ukraine, but maybe airstrikes are on the table. So it's very obvious this is just to confuse.
Yeah, it is, again, way too vague. You can't sign a peace deal based on point 8 for either of the ones, for the US or the European version, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving on to number 9. European fighter jets will be stationed in Poland. NATO fighter jets will be stationed in Poland. I think this aligns with what you just said, right? To have air security over Ukraine, I assume. I mean, that's probably what it's pointing to.
Yeah, and NATO, as in the American jets, making sure the Americans are there with us, because European fighter jets will be stationed in Poland is well and good, but if our fighter jets aren't even able to shoot down some drones, then what good will they do when they're over Ukraine? I mean, I know it's a rough stance, and we have a very strong military, but not strong enough, right? So this is to get the US, to keep them involved in Europe, I would say.
Yeah, and to keep us buying F-36s, I assume.
That too.
Yeah. All right. Okay, moving to the next one, which is number 10. Okay, so this is quite a bit going on here. So number 10, the US will guarantee. The US will receive compensation for the guarantee. If Ukraine invades Russia, it will lose the guarantee. If Russia invades Ukraine, military response, global sanctions, and end of territorial recognition. And if Ukraine launches a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg without cause, the security is voided. All right, so here already, the US guarantee, for me, is just so vague. Like, what are they guaranteeing? I assume that's security for Ukraine, or what do you read here?
I mean, it's so vague. Like, it's and I know, I guess they would hash out the points more concretely, but it's vague on purpose. It's vague on purpose, right? Compensation for the guarantee. So now they're asking for money to defend Ukraine. I mean, it's very, very loose. And this is something as well. This is why a lot of people are wondering if this is just a copy paste from the Kremlin, right? Did they just get this in an email and copy paste it? Because the US guarantee, is not the most natural English. It's almost as if it was rephrased from Russian, right? If Ukraine launches a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg without cause. Yes, it's proper English, but it sounds like it's coming from Russian. I don't know if there's any Russian speakers here, but I included that as well here in the full. We included that in the full phrasing because it's very interesting the way they say these things. But what's your view here? I mean, it makes sense, but like, why is Ukraine launches a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg there? So Rostov-on-Don is fine, Vladivostok is great. We can bomb that. What's the problem?
It's almost like they're already setting up the next conflict.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all of a sudden something happens in Moscow and they blame Ukraine and bam, that's it. The next phase of the war continues. It's too vague. It's like you said, it feels very Russian influenced, these points. And as if Ukraine's going to invade Russia. It just doesn't seem likely.
It doesn't seem likely at all. I think the point C, I must have misworded that, but I think if Russia invades Ukraine, then the sanctions are reinstated. That's point C, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see the European side. So the European side says the US will guarantee mirroring Article 5. Okay, that's clear. So if Ukraine is attacked, then basically we're at war with Russia, all of NATO.
Yeah.
Well, the US. The US to receive compensation for the guarantee. So this basically means, I think this is quite clever by the EU. It's basically saying, Trump, we're going to pay you for it. Right? And Trump always likes a business deal. At least that's how I read it. Then point number B, the Ukraine invades Russia, it forfeits the guarantee. Obviously, if Ukraine invades Russia, I think it's the other way around. Yeah, so I think B and C, there's a slight typo here. I think it means to say, if Ukraine invades Russia, it forfeits the guarantee. If Russia invades Ukraine, it also forfeits the guarantee, I assume, right?
Yeah. I think I must have miswritten that one.
Yeah, there's a mistake there. But basically, yeah. Okay, fine. Anything else to say about this? I mean, it's very vague. Yeah.
Very vague. Yeah. I mean, we've kind of covered this already here, that this is, we need a solid guarantees here.
Yeah. Number 11, Ukraine eligible for EU membership will receive short-term access to the EU market, and exactly the same for the European side, which I think is fair.
It's fair, but why do the Americans decide?
Yeah.
Why do they decide who goes in our market? I mean, if it came from the Europeans, fine, right? Great. I'm happy for Ukraine to be part of our short-term market. Why is it coming from the Americans? They did not consult us at all when building this plan, so they just thought we'd just go along with it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Number 12, a powerful global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine, including but not limited to. Okay, and then the European side also says robust global redevelopment package for Ukraine. I think there's a couple points underneath it, but yeah, it basically means rebuilding Ukraine, right?
Let me get the points out for you. That way we've got them. I'll read them out, but
Okay.
they're quite vague. It's infrastructure development, all these kind of things. Let me get them out.
No worries.
Now.
And then while you're getting them out, so let's have a look at number 13. So Russia will be reintegrated into the global economy. That's a G8 invitation. And then the European side basically says Russia to be progressively reintegrated into the global economy. So eventually maybe a G8 invitation. So yeah, definitely the US side, who is more keen to get this done quickly and soon, and the EU, or Europe in that matter, wants it to be happening step by step. So I would say the European side here is definitely a lot more understandable to actually see if Russia commits to whatever they promised in this peace agreement.
The G8 invitation is interesting, though. Letting them rejoin the G8 is, I mean, being in the same room as Vladimir Putin with Macron is going to be a bit of an awkward.
It's going to be super, super awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be like that visit when you remember when Putin was on one side and you had Macron on the other side, and there's like this long table.
I honestly don't see it happen as long as Putin is in charge.
Yeah,
and probably not long after that either, depending who takes over. But yeah, it's unlikely.
Do you think he'll be a long time, Putin? Do you think he's a healthy guy, or what do you think?
I don't know, man. I think bad actors have a tendency to live long. This is just a feeling, but I don't know. I think he's probably got quite a while left, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's unfortunate, but he looks healthy. He did judo, unfortunately. So
yeah. And to be honest, I think there's a fair comment here too from Incorruptus Sculptor. Putin won't exist after signing this peace plan, lol. I mean, I think he's referring to he's never going to sign any peace plan anyway. He's so dependent on war at the moment. Yeah. His whole country is, that I think the second he kind of stops doing that, it's not going to be good for him. I feel his entire economy is built on it. Everything will crumble.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very passionate about this. It's built on a war economy, an economy that's slowly turning into even more radical an even more radical war economy. Now, I disagree with a lot of people on when this economy will fail. It has to fail eventually, but I think it still has some steam. But you're absolutely right that if this war ends tomorrow, I mean, this is not going to end well for Putin. It's going to end badly.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, very quickly, let me read out in point number 12. So we said a powerful global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine, including but not limited to the creation of a Ukraine Development Fund to invest in fast-growing industries, including technology, data centers, and artificial intelligence. Well, it's a list here. The United States will cooperate with Ukraine to jointly rebuild, develop, modernize, and operate Ukraine's gas infrastructure, including pipelines and storage facilities. Okay, next point is joint efforts to rehabilitate war-affected areas for the restoration, reconstruction, and modernization of cities and residential areas. More infrastructure development. And of course, here we go, the extraction of minerals and natural resources. The US is definitely interested in that. And the World Bank will develop a special financing package to accelerate these efforts. Okay, so that's the US side of the whole global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine. And to be honest, it feels like there's a business interest here, right?
Yeah, he wants to make money. He's a businessman, right? Or at least he portrays himself to be a businessman. I don't know how much of one he is, but yeah, he definitely wants to make money from that. And I guess you'll see one of these the points that are coming up are very interesting in terms of the compensation of the frozen Russian assets. I mean, we'll get to it later, but it's there.
So before we go to the number 13, quick shout out to the chat. Ave Europa is a member of the European Parliament as part of our Patreon, or in Europe on YouTube, it's what's it called on YouTube? Memberships. Exactly. So thank you so much for joining us. We need to talk at some point, because I think they're quite an interesting new party, or want to be a party with some interesting ideas. Not that we're endorsing anything, but definitely be interesting to see what they want to do. All right. So yeah, also a big shout out to everyone else here. If you do want to support us, definitely get on Patreon or become a member. It really helps us finance everything that we do. Let's move to number 14. Okay, I love this one. This is probably my favorite. It's just disgusting, this one. All right. So number 14. $100 billion in frozen Russian assets will fund US-led rebuilding in Ukraine, with the US getting 50% of profits. Europe will add $100 billion too. Remaining Russian assets will go into a joint US-Russia fund to encourage cooperation and prevent future conflict. So let me understand this straight. The US invests zero. 100 billion gets taken. The 100 billion gets taken from Russia, and the EU puts 100 billion, and the US gets 50% of the profits. It's a great deal, right? It's a great deal for Europe and for Ukraine.
It's the most spit in the face kind of thing I've ever seen in my life, for Europeans at least. For the Ukrainians, fine, they get rebuilt. For the Europeans, I mean, no one asked them anything, right? They draft up this peace plan. Europe has to add 100 billion. I don't know where they got that from. They probably got that from the Russian assets. 100 billion plus 100 billion, right? It's 200 billion. And the US gets 50% of profits. But what do you define as a profit? Because if you define a profit as, for example, like the minerals that you extract from the ground, or potential infrastructure, then the return on investment will be massive, right? It's not going to be 200, 300 billion. It'll be much more. And we're footing that bill. Of course, for the benefits of a very flaky peace deal, right? For that benefit, we pay 100 billion, but this is ridiculous. I mean, this.
Yeah, it's a massive spit in the face.
It's a spit in the face, and it's a bit embarrassing, really, to even have that on there. I mean, for us, like, it's not it's just embarrassing. I think, at least.
Exactly. So thankfully, the European Union, or Europe, responded saying Ukraine will be fully rebuilt and financially compensated using frozen Russian assets until Russia pays the damages. I don't have anything to say against that. That works. That works a lot better.
It works fine, yeah. And maybe we can put in some European money too. We'll make our own return on investments, and we'll rebuild Ukraine with the Ukrainians. And why does the US need to be involved? Basically,
yeah. Just to for anyone that just joined us on the live stream. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at the US plan on the left side, and you can see on the screen. And on the right side, we're looking at the European response. So just to answer you, HEVD, with this stuff, I really think we should just make our own plan instead of using the United States one. I definitely agree with you. And we should have done this years ago, saying these are our red lines that we can all sign up to and we agree to. But I think the smart thing about this is that it's kind of like accepting Trump's plan, but like building on it. And I think that's an easier sell to the US and to Trump, I mean, than to create our entire own plan and saying the Trump plan is terrible. I know that we should be doing our own thing, but sadly, as sadly the situation is, that the US is still a vital supporter of Ukraine, right? Especially with the intelligence, as I mentioned before. That's kind of my opinion about all of this. Paul, would you disagree, or?
I think the US has a lot less leverage than it thinks. Because what does the US give, really? It has the intelligence. Yes, the intelligence is actually very important, and I agree with you. We don't have that capability, right? We don't have it. But what does it actually do? Well, it tells Ukraine when strikes are coming, and it tells them where to strike oil depots and such, right? Where are all the air defenses? But these are not critical. They're critical to the long run, right, and to the medium term. But on the short term and on the actual battlefield, where people are moving forward and backwards, it's not as critical. It's very critical, but not super critical.
Yeah, but I see your point. But I'd rather play the game as long as possible and keep that support, rather than say, Trump, your deal is terrible, which it is. We can say it, but politicians need to be careful, because that might entice him to cut off the aid straight away, which would be nice to keep as long as we can. And I think he can even do worse things, right? He could potentially, even if he really thinks Ukraine is stopping, is the one that's stopping any peace from happening, he could even, I don't know, put sanctions on Ukraine. You know, he could go the whole other way, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I completely agree. But the thing is here is that I don't know how to deal with Trump, right? I mean, everyone has so many ideas about him, but I think we need to take a real look at our strategy, right? We've been sweet talking this guy for a whole year, right? We think we make advances on Ukraine. He says, yeah, I'm with Ukraine this time. And oh, yeah, Russia is the one at fault. And we have hope. Then he meets him in Alaska. Then we have a big summit with Trump again. We meet him at the White House and we make a big statement. It's live streamed, and we have hope all over again. Oh, we're getting through to this guy. He's finally getting it. And then he gets a peace deal email from Russia, and he posts that as the peace deal from the US. So it seems like we're just not getting through to this guy. So I don't know what the strategy is, but we need to find a way to keep Trump from not sanctioning Ukraine, as you say. Obviously, it could be a lot worse, but also our strategy is not working. And so I'm not sure what it could be. He does respect strength, to be fair.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, to be honest. But let's go quickly to the chat, as we do have another super chat from Ran. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And his question is there a legal way to use the frozen Russian assets without Russia's consent? Maybe I've missed that part. Yes, you have missed that part, but let's quickly do a quick explainer. So basically, there is about $160 billion, I think it is, around that amount in Belgium at the moment. That is basically Russian state money that we could potentially confiscate and use to help Ukraine in this whole conflict. The only problem is the European Council met a couple of weeks ago, and 26 countries or 25 countries, or a lot of countries were for it, but Belgium basically wasn't. Right? Because Belgium is afraid that they will be stuck with the bill at the end of the day. And maybe, Paul, you're more into finance than I am, so maybe you can add to it why this is a problem for Belgium.
I mean, I guess because it's stored inside of their country, right? So I think the specifics of this are quite nuanced, but I believe they will have the final decision, or like it will hit their banking system. So it will be their bonds that might shoot up, right? It's because at the end of the day, it's still Belgium. It's not the European. And again, because we don't have joint European debt, it's a decision made by Europe for, I believe, Euroclear. But at the end of the day, it's inside of Belgian financial and legal institutions. So if they're the ones to go through with to green light this decision, then it's probably their bond markets.
I think it's more about, they could be, they don't want to be stuck with a massive bill in the end if there's some kind of process or court case or whatever where they have to pay back Russia, I guess.
Or
I think
that's that, right? Yeah, of course. Or that, of course.
Yeah, but the idea is basically we take the money, we finance Ukraine as a loan. Ukraine will eventually have to pay back Euroclear, but will only have to pay back once Russia gives Ukraine reparation money. So in the end of the day, it will be Russia paying back their own loan if that works out. Yeah, I didn't explain that completely well, but yeah, it's an interesting setup. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So number 15, a joint American-Russian working group on security issues will be established.
Why not?
Yeah. But look at number 15. A joint American-Russian working group on security issues will be established.
We need to have the Europeans and the Ukrainians on there as well.
Correct. It makes no sense. No sense. And the European response is great. A joint security task force will be established with the US, Ukraine, Russia, and the Europeans. No shit. Excuse my language, but no shit.
It should be.
Yeah. Number 16. Russia will enshrine in law its policy of non-aggression towards Europe and Ukraine. All right.
Fair enough. Usually you should put in the constitution, not that the Russian constitution means much to Vladimir Putin, but it's at least it'll be there, right? So yeah, it's something at least.
Number 17, the United States and Russia will agree to extend the validity of the treaties on the non-proliferation, and that stays the same. Which, to be honest, that's probably one of the things I think is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, I believe the START treaty is running out in February, and I know a lot of I mean, during our conference in Vienna, Lambertus, I saw some panels from some atomic scientists, and they were very worried about that. Very, very worried about that. So,
why were they worried? Because it runs out the treaty, right?
yeah, they're thinking that Trump might, do a little bit of an atomic tests, and then, or not Trump, sorry, Putin might do an atomic test somewhere just to, make some nice camera angles, post it everywhere on social media, get the Europeans nice and scared that, oh, look, it'll be Paris next or Berlin. But and I mean, any nuclear testing is bad. I mean, it's a good thing that we've moved away from that. I'm not against nuclear weapons per se, but nuclear weapons testing has caused a lot of harm, and it's definitely not what you want when there's increased tensions.
So we can agree that number 17 is actually a good point.
It's a good point, I would say, yeah.
Ukraine agrees to be a non-nuclear state. And then the European response, a joint security task force will be established with the US, Ukraine, Russia, and the Europeans. I think that's another copy-paste.
Yeah, this is supposed to be, this is another error there, my bad. It's supposed to be also Ukraine agrees to be a non-nuclear state. They're both supposed to be non-nuclear states. And they've already agreed to this when they gave up their nuclear weapons. But if they want nukes and they have the money, I would understand why they would want some. So, I'm a bit nuanced on this because I'm a very against proliferation, but you need the nuclear weapon. If Ukraine had nuclear weapons, it wouldn't have been invaded. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Let's move to number 19. Zaporizhia power plant will be launched with IAEA. Electricity produced will be split 50-50. Kept by the Europe too, the same as it is. I mean, that's the power plant right, like in between the conflict, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's just south of the river, and then you've got Zaporizhia, like the rest of Zaporizhia Oblast on the north, and then you've got it powering Zaporizhia city. And
we'll have a look at a map in a bit anyway, so then we can have a look where that is. But I mean, I guess if it's right in the middle of the conflict, then I mean that makes sense. Even though it's kind of Ukraine's territory and their power plant. I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. Anyway, number 20. Both countries will run educational programs to promote cultural understanding. Ukraine will adopt EU rules on religious tolerance and the protection of linguistic minorities. I think in the original plan, if I remember it correctly, there was a lot more detail to number 20.
There was, yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I've got the list right here. I mean, I can read it out if you want. Ukraine will adopt EU rules on. So for the Russian side, Ukraine will adopt EU rules on religious tolerance and the protection of linguistic minorities. Both countries will agree to abolish all discriminatory measures and guarantee the rights of Ukrainian Russian media and education. And all Nazi ideology and activities must be rejected and prohibited.
Yeah, Nazi ideology. So that's definitely, that sounds very, very much like Russian writing into the American peace plan.
Yeah, exactly. It's their whole narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a narrative that has been debunked multiple times. Of course, I don't know how much you're aware of this, Lambertus. I've heard or I've seen videos. There are some extreme rights groups in Ukraine, but they're a massive minority in Ukraine, and they don't represent at all who is leading the country.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. There's also, groups in Germany, very, very small. Only it could be only a couple hundred, but there are groups that are definitely into,
of course,
these neo-Nazi ideas, right? So
of course,
every country has that. Yeah.
This is just this is Russia's talking points, basically. It's Russia's fake talking points that have been debunked multiple times.
Yeah. Okay, we made it. The big one. So let's look at a map also once I read this out. But basically, the territories Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk recognized as de facto Russian. Kherson and Zaporizhia frozen along the contact line. Russia gives up other agreed territories. Okay, let's look at those. Ukrainian forces withdraw from part of Donetsk, creating a neutral buffer under Russian control with no Russian forces entering. Now, before we look at the European response, let's have a look at a map to really make this clearer for our audience. So this is the map, and Paul, I'll give it to you. Maybe explain what's going on here.
Yeah, so the red line is the current front line, the line of control. Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea. These are all oblasts that are occupied, very much occupied by Russia. They're they were annexed and put inside of their legislation or constitution, and which we all know was bullshit, because basically they just had elections that nobody went to, and they went to with massive guns and asked if you want to be part of Russia or not. So they're annexed territories. What Russia is saying here is that Donetsk and Luhansk will be given in full to Russia. The Zaporizhia and Kherson regions will be drawn at the line of control and left as is, which kind of makes sense because you've got the rivers. I mean, if we were to draw up a deal, I mean, it's the thing that makes most logical sense, even though they're all Ukrainian. And the demilitarized zone would be a zone which Russian troops could not enter, right? Could not enter, but would belong to Russia in everyday life. And the last point, which is the bit more nuanced region, is you can see there on the current front line, Russia has basically advanced a bit further out. I forgot the names of those settlements, but it's advanced a bit further than Luhansk. The contract, the deal here would be that Russia would withdraw from those regions, give it back to Ukraine, and in exchange, it would get the demilitarized zone.
Let me summarize that. At the top left of Luhansk, there's a very small part that Ukraine gets back. Right,
completely destroyed, by the way.
Yeah,
of course, it's been annihilated.
Right. But that's what Ukraine gets back, and basically what Russia gets is the entire demilitarized zone, not to mention the the entire red area, which really is Ukrainian territory. Right. That's basically the deal. Yeah. Okay. It's quite insane, to be honest, because I mean the normal way to do this is you'd freeze the conflict first, and then you go into the whole peace plan negotiations, and giving up land that's not yet been conquered is just beyond me. Especially because, I mean, everyone knows the argument and it makes complete sense. Ukraine has built crazy amounts of defense in that demilitarized zone area, basically the strongest defense line that in the whole world probably, and they would literally just basically surrender that to the Russians and then just hope with their smaller army, now a limit of 600,000, that Russia won't overrun them in 2 years' time. That's basically the gist of it.
It's ridiculous. It's an insult. It's
So I hope Europe responded strongly. Europe basically said Ukraine commits not to recover its occupied sovereign territory through military means. Negotiations on territorial swaps will start from the line of contact, no recognition.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot more reasonable. First a ceasefire. I mean, that's how I believe they should do it. And then on the front lines, no land swapping yet, and then the peace negotiations can begin.
I totally agree. This all starts with a ceasefire. Firstly, stop bombing Ukrainian cities, stop advancing positions, and then we can talk, right? You can't talk while being actively stabbed in the neck. I mean, it's obvious. No recognition is important too. I mean, Ukraine legally cannot recognize losing territory, right? So it can't recognize legally, and it would be very complicated politically to ever recognize, for example, Crimea not being Ukrainian. So it being not recognized, I think, is a strong start. Let's say that, right? So, yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's move on to number 22. Both the Russian Federation and Ukraine undertake not to change these arrangements by force. Nothing needs to be said here. I mean, Europe kept the points also. Number 23. Russia shall not obstruct Ukraine's use of the my pronunciation here, Dnipro River for purposes or commercial activities. And the same for Europe, I think. Russia shall not obstruct Ukraine's use of the Dnipro River for purpose of commercial activities. I think that's fine. Next one, 24. A humanitarian committee will oversee prisoner exchanges, return all civilians and hostages, reunite families, and aid conflicted victims. Europe has the same part, or has the same point. I think we're not much to discuss here, right?
Not much to discuss. There's some small words and changing in wording, but not much here. Yeah, we can keep going, I think.
Number 25. Ukraine will hold elections in 100 days. Okay. I mean, we'll get to that. And the European response is Ukraine will hold elections as soon as possible after the signing of the peace agreement. I think it really goes to show here again is that both Russia and also Trump in the US, they really want Zelensky gone.
They don't trust him.
No,
they don't like him.
They don't like him at all. I mean, it's very clear. Obviously, Russia doesn't. And the US, I mean, ever since that Oval Office meeting, I think we all know that there's not a lot of love between the leaders of the US and Ukraine.
Yeah. I mean, it's Ukraine gets to hold elections, when it holds elections. Right now, it's legally enshrined. I mean, Zelensky can't have elections if 20% of his country is being occupied, right?
Just insane. How do you expect people to vote on the front line to start with? What about the 4.4 million refugees all over Europe, right?
And the soldiers that are fighting, right?
Yeah.
How are you gonna get them to vote?
Exactly what? Well, they're like literally in a bunker somewhere underground or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how the hell it would work during a war.
It wouldn't. And this is just, this is to seem democratic, right? Trump will read it like, democracy, elections, 100 days, right? But it's BS. Ukraine will have elections when the war is over. So first start with the war ending, right? And then elections. Makes a lot of sense to me. The European counter arguments. The Russian one is just Russian talking points.
Yeah, it definitely is. This is a good question from Dan, and I actually don't know the answer. He's asking, would Zelensky be able to run for president again, or is there a limit after being president for XX years? I have no idea. Do you?
I'm not sure. If I remember correctly, I think they have a 2-term limit, like most. We'd have to check that. Let's check that. I believe it's.
So why doesn't someone from the chat, throw this into Google or whatever, ChatGPT, and let us know. Good question, though. Very interesting. And another one is saying, do you think Zelensky would lose an election? Right now, I think it's just impossible to have an election, and it's very hard to say. It's just not possible. But I think if there is some kind of peace plan or some kind of ceasefire, it really depends on the nature of the ceasefire. Very hard to answer.
I mean, it depends a lot on what peace he gets, what peace he doesn't get, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if he gets a terrible peace for Ukraine, I can't imagine many Ukrainians voting for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think one of the real red lines among the Ukrainian public, I think I read this today, was really giving up territory. That's an absolute no-go.
Imagine if you were them. Like, you've been fighting for 3.5 years, and Russia hasn't won. You've given probably your brother, your father's on the front line, maybe your husband's there. I met a girl in Vienna who got married in a bunker to her husband. He was in Pokrovsk, the city that's fighting right now. She lives in Zaporizhia, just a few kilometers from the front line. There's drones that's hitting her near her apartment every day.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of life is that? And then you lose. Can you imagine everything that you've given up for years just for this peace deal? I mean, I would be in the street. I would be angry. I would be very, very angry.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. To answer the question, someone ChatGPT'd it. The president of Ukraine serves a 5-year term, and under the constitution may serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. Thanks, John Buck, for looking it up. Let's continue, though. Number 26. All parties involved in this conflict will receive full amnesty for their actions during the war. All right, the European response. Provisions will be made to address the suffering of victims of the conflict. No amnesty, basically. Yes. I mean, seriously, it's like saying after the Second World War, let's not have the Nuremberg trials and let's just forgive all of the Nazis that committed their atrocities. That's just ridiculous. Insane stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, Putin deserves to be in one place only. It's The Hague, in a prison deep underground, and never see the light of day again. That's what should happen to Putin, and to Lavrov too, who is a criminal, who should happen to every single Russian general that has allowed this to happen. They should all be in jail.
Yeah,
that's
very hard. Yeah, I agree. Very hard to put in the peace plan that they have to sign, though.
Gotta be complicated.
Yeah. All right, so over to number 27. This agreement will be legally binding, monitored and guaranteed by the Peace Council, headed by President Donald J. Trump. I mean, this reminds me very much of the peace plan that the U.S. created for Palestine and Israel, the whole issue in Gaza. He's also head of the Peace Council there. Yeah, with his stamp on it, right? I mean, what should we say there?
I mean, look, I mean, it's another point for a CV, right? It's free. It's free. Why not?
He wants it for the Peace Prize.
Yeah, he wants the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
I don't think he would get it if this deal is signed, because I think he would cause a lot more death further down the road. But
I think so too, and I think we'll get to that after the last point, which is number 28. Once all parties agree the ceasefire will take effect after. Let me say that again. Once all parties agree, the ceasefire will take effect after both sides retreat to agreed points to begin implementation of the agreement. Okay, and the European response, ceasefire begins once both sides withdraw to agreed points with monitoring under US supervision. So a little bit clearer, but again, vague.
Quite similar.
Yeah.
Quite similar,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair enough. It makes sense that you would move to the agreed points before the ceasefire would take effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a military expert. So.
No, me neither. Well, difficult. So I think, what are your conclusions, Paul? What do you think about this peace plan from the US and also the European response? Are you happy with the European response on these US points or not?
So I'll get into a bit of a monologue here, so just interrupt me if I'm going too far. But the peace plan by Russia was sort of genius in some ways, because obviously it could never be accepted by Ukraine and the Europeans, but it looked to Putin, or at least to amateurs who might not understand fully, or not amateurs, but just people who don't have time to look into the conflict. Well, not an issue a president of the US should have, but does for some reason. Something that looks quite reasonable, right? Oh, Ukraine is independent, Ukraine's still allowed an army, these kind of things. Now, this was meant to divide us, and it worked extremely well, because look at that, we're all in Geneva discussing again. The European peace plan is a very good counter to this, because it still sucks up to Trump, which so far is the only thing we've been able to do. Whether that's the good strategy or not, I mean, at least he's not sanctioning Ukraine, as you're saying. But what's really good about this peace plan is that the Russians can't accept it either. So now we're pushing it back to the Russians, and we're saying, now it's your turn. Are you going to accept this peace deal or not, right? Because they don't look like massive changes, just rewording here and there. Some of them seem big, but again, I don't think Trump is that much more informed than, or at least the people working on it are that much more informed if they're proposing a plan like that. So to me, it's basically becoming a game of catch the bomb, right? You're just throwing it over. Oh, I don't want this peace deal, or throwing it out. And this comes at a time when Trump, he's got the Epstein files released on him. There's Venezuela, the drug gangs, is he going to invade that? That's another problem. The economy is not doing very well in the US, or it is, but not for the average American. There's still some problems there. So this is an excellent counter proposal by the Europeans. Of course, I don't agree with all the details, but I don't think we're meant to agree with all of them, because I think it's meant to be rejected, because we know that we can't negotiate with Putin, who wants this war. He's the one who has wanted the war from the start, and he continues to want this war. So it's a counter proposal. Yes, we should have our own proposals, our own conditions for peace. And quite frankly, it's just a bit. I think the Americans don't have much leverage here on the long run, or on the short term at least. I think that Europe still can do a lot more to arm Ukraine, and the Americans don't have that much say. I mean, we use their weapons and their technology, but we can still buy them on the open market, give it to the Ukrainians, or we can produce our own. It's us that need to put more spending into Ukraine. So verdict on the European plan. Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's better than the American one, but really the only plan that could work is if Russia, withdraws from Ukraine. And the only way we do that is by bombing the hell out of Russian positions. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I would agree with part of it. I mean, I tried to explain that before too, that I like the strategy at the moment to build upon the US plan. Like you said, change it here and there. It still feels like Trump's plan. And maybe that way Trump will feel the Europeans are appreciative of him and he stays on board longer. Because I think the critical piece here, as much as I hate it, is we need the US on board as long as possible. And we can't afford a clean cut just yet, even though that's exactly what we need at some point, right? I think during this time, we just need time. That's it. Time is the key word. We need to really get our own acts in order, which we're trying and starting to do. I wish we did more together. Germany spending all that money on their own army and just buying tanks and things like that and slotting it into a warehouse somewhere never to be used is not the right approach. I really think those should be either, we invest that money into modern technology, drones and things like that, or give part of it to Ukraine. But that's a whole different topic. But yeah, so we need that time to basically get our act together. And so I think the response has been good, even though I do wish that Europe does create their own red lines at some point, rather than always being reactive.
It's our continent, right? It's our neighbor. Yeah. So I totally agree. Yeah.
You know what really worries me though, Paul? It really worries me is that Ukraine's not doing well at the moment. Let's be honest. They're losing ground, right? Quicker and more so, still slow, of course, but still quicker and more so than maybe a year ago. And they're not able to build up their army that much anymore. There's a lot of deserters currently. Yeah. Not many people are getting recruited into the army. They face financial trouble. I mean, I hope Europe gets their act together and actually gets that money from Belgium over to Ukraine. But it doesn't, I mean, hopefully it happens, but still it doesn't look great. So I am almost thinking, I mean, playing devil's advocate here, right? Is this the best Ukraine's going to get? Because in 2 years' time, the Russian army might have actually taken, I don't know, all 4 oblasts, and they want more than, again, 2. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate because I don't think this plan needs to be signed. But I am worried about this.
Yeah, I mean, I really share your concerns. Like, we're making a teaser, but we're making a video on this exact topic. But Ukraine has been fighting hard and bravely, and they're very brave people. But at one point, the math doesn't add up, right? And Russia doesn't care about its losses, its humanitarian losses. It's not fully militarized yet. It still has a lot of fiscal space, a lot of debt it can take.
Right. This is worrying.
It's very worrying. And I see a lot of, and I watch a lot of Ukrainian content. I watch a lot of content from the West. And there's this narrative that the Russian economy will collapse tomorrow. It's not going to collapse tomorrow. It's not going to collapse next week. It's not, hopefully it collapses next week. I hope there's a financial crash and everything falls apart. I wish for it every day, but the facts are not there. And if we kind of turn a blind eye on that reality, it's not good for Ukraine. And what we need is, of course, where Ukraine can't sign a peace deal where it doesn't have security guarantees, because as I said, it can't maintain an army of 1 million plus people. It doesn't have that many people left. It doesn't have that much money, those many resources. So it needs a plan to actually secure itself with NATO troops, for example. And until it has that, it can't stop the war because it'll just lose later on. And to me, and that's maybe where you might be onto something is, Zelensky has to pretend or at least engage with the peace plan, right? Because it's Trump. But fundamentally, the Ukrainians do really want peace. This war has been going for very long. It's unsure how much longer things can go, especially without American support and without that much European support. Because yes, 100 Rafales from France to Ukraine, but was just not enough. Not enough, not quick enough, right? It's just too little, too late. Always too little, too late.
Always.
And that's worrying to me as well.
I mean, it is a bit of an advertisement for our next video, but basically, this is an Economist article, right? That I thought was super interesting. And it basically says Ukraine, for the next 4 years, in terms of buying weapons, in terms of financing its war, needs $390 billion, right? $390 billion. Sounds like a lot. If we use the frozen assets, the $163 billion, that is what? $230 billion left over that we need to fund Ukraine with. Now, if we can basically finance it, and the article says it right here, if all NATO countries, excluding the US, let's not even count the US, if they spend 0.4% of their GDP on Ukraine, 0.4% of their GDP. I mean, what are we talking about? Like, what I just don't understand is, like, we're so rich here in Europe, and we really are. I mean, as much as there's problems, sure, we are very, very rich nations. This is our power over Russia. It's the power we have over most countries in the world, and we can't seem to get our act together to finance Ukraine 0.4% of our GDPs. I mean, what are we doing?
That's why we're so worried, right? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then it's just. I mean, I live in Germany, and we're propping all this money into all of our social systems, which is great. I want them. Or even the military, 3.5% into the military of our GDP. Slice off 0.5%, send it over to Ukraine. If every country did that, at least financially, they would be stable. There's still other problems like men, like literally men on the front line, but at least one of the problems would be gone. And I just don't get it.
I mean, it's years of the peace dividend and over-reliance on America, right? That's what it's done to us. It's made us weak. It's made us not think militarily. It's made us complacent almost.
Yeah.
I mean, and this goes back to what Unknown User was saying, right? Why don't we take all that money, maybe or 1% of that GDP that we're spending on extra military defense, and we put it into joint funding for Ukraine and for creating our own weapons, right? We put half of it, we send it directly to Ukraine, and half of it we spend it on factories in the EU making European weapons. So we got Sa, we got Rafale, we've got Reikmar. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but we have so much.
I know. But I mean, I think this is also part of the Russian strategy, right? Honestly, the Russian strategy is let's fly some drones over Germany. Let's make uncertainty here, uncertainty there. And what do? We, as a response, we get worried, understandably so, but we invest a lot in our own militaries. And instead of giving that to Ukraine, where the real fight's happening, you know, I gave the example earlier, the Germany's buying tanks and literally storing them in warehouses. You know, like, and I think that's part of the strategy for Russia. They're like, let's scare these Europeans. They build up their own militaries and they ignore what's happening in Ukraine where it's really mattering. Maybe. I mean, that's just.
No, but you're right. Think about who knows how to use these weapons. It's the Ukrainians. They're going to use it a lot better than a German will. They're going to use it better than a Polish person would, and a French person would as well, because they've been fighting for years. They know how to fight these guys. I don't think we're nearly ready. We're not ready at all for a Russian invasion. It's chaotic.
Yeah, it's just
tanks won't do much to a drone, right? Like it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Quick shout out to the chat. Ran, awesome. Thank you so much for your super chat. We really appreciate it. And as I think what you're asking here is for anyone that said no in the poll, basically people that are saying they don't like the European counter proposal, please write in the chat why you selected no. I think that would be great to understand why, because I think it's the best that you can do right now, even though I do agree, or I like to laugh at someone's comment here. Sebastian Grunfeld said, only took us 4 years to come with our, it only took us 4 years to come up with our own peace proposal. No, Sebastian, we still haven't come up with this peace proposal. This is just a response to the American one, man. So it will probably take another year. Who knows?
I mean, given it's been 3.5 years already, it wouldn't surprise me if we took us another half year. So maybe he's right, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, any final questions in the chat, then please tag us now. We're going to close the stream in a couple of minutes. But yeah, I think the final question from me to you, Paul, is what should Ukraine do?
Well, that's for the Ukrainians to decide. I mean, ultimately, we can have our opinions on a peace deal because it affects us a lot. But at the end of the day, the Ukrainians are the ones that are going to sign the peace deal. What should they do on a strategic level? I think they should... it's hard to say they should keep fighting because I'm not the one doing the fighting, right? I'm not on the front line, but I think they should keep fighting. I think that I think they should keep doing what they're doing with the U.S. because the U.S. relationship is important. But it would be great to see, and this is coming from Europe. This is Europe's problem, not Ukraine's problem. It would be great to see Europe finally stand up for itself, finally stand up for Ukraine and its allies, not just France or Germany by Ukraine, but Europe, the European Union, the EU.
Go and talk to Orban, Paul.
Yeah, Orban. My God, forgot about that guy for a second. But yeah, that's part of the problem, right? And that's the veto goes back to the veto, goes back to a lot of things. But it's painfully obvious we're not doing enough. And if I was Ukraine, I'd be very worried right now. As you say, it's not looking good. The numbers are not looking good. Support now the Americans and the Russians are against you. This is not looking very good for the Ukrainians.
I know. It's a real shame. And I don't know, maybe on if I had to end on a positive note, right? I mean, financially, I'm going to say it again, we can easily, without having a big impact in our life, in our standard of living, we can easily support them, and we're not doing it, and it's just a shame. But it's something we can definitely do. But yeah. Anyway, last question from the chat. Do you think Americans will have Ukraine fatigue in the coming years?
Ukraine what? Sorry?
Tyler Butler said, do you think Americans will have Ukraine fatigue in the coming years? I mean, aren't they already having Ukraine fatigue? Do you understand the question, Paul? Or
No,
Okay, if I understand it correctly, it's, do you think Americans will have Ukraine fatigue in the coming years? So basically saying, do they have enough of supporting Ukraine? You know, are they tired of having to support Ukraine? That's how I understood it. And I honestly, I think it's an easy answer. I think they already do.
I think in Europe too. I mean, you look at even from the far right to the far left, but even from the normal right to normal left, you start to see some fatigue as well. Even the centrist parties in France, the big debate about the Senate bill and the budget bill, we should be talking about the peace deal. Should be the biggest news. You know, it's surprising to me. Well, humans adapt easily, so maybe that's why, and especially in democracy, narratives die quickly. But the pro-Ukraine narrative is dying at an astonishing pace, and I think it's very close to irredeemable amounts of destruction by the Russians.
All right, Paul. Just quickly, I meant fatigue, not fatigue. I don't know why I mispronounced it. It's just, I don't know. I'm not. I always pronounce that word. I don't know what it is. Anyway, great live stream. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the video, and please support us on Patreon if you like the work we do. We really appreciate all your support. And also all the presidents in here. There was a couple of presidents. AGVD, thank you. Villa, you were here. Thank you. Ran, lots of people here that support us already. So thank you, everyone. And of course, lastly, quickly, before I get into trouble by my Discord manager, join our Discord. We have these discussions there, which are great about all kinds of topics. We even have a role-playing Discord too, if you want to create your own party, if you want to debate to become prime minister. And we have something new coming up. If you become the prime minister, you also get a free merch, I mean, from EU Made Simple team. So something that you can definitely, look forward to winning. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Bye, guys.
Okay, 1 second. Oh, 1 second. I need to quit. Oh, we're still here.